Every year, a group called Kentucky Youth Advocates issues a report that measures the well-being of our children among counties in the Commonwealth. The 2021 Kentucky Kids Count Data Book was released today, and this year it also focuses on racial equity. And we've asked Terry Brooks, the Executive Director of Kentucky Youth Advocates, to join us today to talk about these findings. And Terry, thank you so much for joining us. First of all,
sure, we appreciate you being here.
First of all, give us a quick idea of how this data was compiled. Where does it come from?
Sure. Kids Count is a national initiative, and in June of each year, the Annie Casey Foundation, in collaboration with each of its state partners, as you mentioned in Kentucky, that's KYA, issues a national report which compares Kentucky to every other state. So this past year, for instance, we ranked 35th overall in child well-being. And, you know, what I tend to do is look at that in terms of where does Kentucky rank compared to Tennessee or Missouri or Indiana or Ohio, those neighboring states. What trends do we as a state feel like we're making progress in? What areas do we see a decline? And then we come back in late fall and we take all of that data for Kentucky and disaggregate into county level data. We certainly have to look at national trends, we have to look at state trends, but we also think it's really important for folks in Davis or Henderson or Hopkins County to be able to look at data that pertains to their counties and think about what changes can be made, whether that's in Washington, Frankfort, or in at the county clerk's office.
Yeah.
So it's really a national, state, and local initiative to help with the well-being of Kentucky's kids.
Well, let's dig into some of these findings here. Let's talk about on the state level first. Talk about children in Kentucky experiencing poverty. Now, there seems to be a big racial difference there. Talk about your findings and possible solutions.
Yeah, there's a couple important messages, I think, when it comes to childhood poverty. First, I carry a hypothesis that unless and until we address childhood poverty, I'm not sure if anything else matters, because we know that economic well-being is such a profound catalyst, whether it's health outcomes or academic achievement or even safety issues for kids. So that is a seminal issue. There is good news, and we need to celebrate that, which is the trend line for childhood poverty in Kentucky has been improving for several years. And we need to take a moment and celebrate that. The part that I find troubling around that particular data point, however, is extreme disparity between kids depending on race. And so we know that white kids have a poverty rate of around 19% of white kids in Kentucky live in poverty. In certain urban centers, the rate for African-American kids who live in those metropolitan urban areas exceeds 40%.
Goodness.
And I think all of us recognize that we do not want the color of a little boy or a little girl's skin to dictate their economic well-being. So the good news about that, whether it's for a white kid or a Latinx kid or an African-American kid, is there are very practical common ground solutions available to folks in Frankfort and to folks in Washington. This is not an urban, rural, Republican, Democratic issue. There are a number of policy solutions ranging from curbing predatory lending to looking at a child tax credit, to increasing the affordability of child care. All of those would be real levers for Kentucky's kids, especially those kids in poverty.
Wow, those are remarkable percentages that you just quoted to us there. Let's talk about, you mentioned our largest counties in our Western Kentucky viewing area, Davis, Henderson, and Hopkins. All of those counties show the biggest negative changes in the number of kids going into foster care and then the reunification with family. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a very complex and a very difficult issue. And what I would say is the fact that the numbers for your region have increased doesn't necessarily mean that folks are not doing a good job. Now, that seems a little counterintuitive at first blush, but we know that for instance, the pandemic has really exacerbated issues around child welfare. We have more kids needing to enter the child welfare system for a variety of reasons than traditionally has been the case. So it may well be in your all's region that more kids are being served, but because more kids need the service, it looks like, that it's a negative trend. I would say there are a couple things that I would want to highlight. One is that I'm very encouraged, not just in Western Kentucky, but throughout the Commonwealth, that I think community groups and state leadership are trying to come up with some, again, common sense solutions. As an example, if a little boy or a little girl can't stay with mom and dad for all kinds of reasons, we really embrace the idea of kinship care. If at all possible, living with grandma or grandpa or that aunt or uncle is a whole lot better than alternatives. We've seen kinship care grow. In fact, there's over 100,000 kids in Kentucky who live with a grandma or a grandpa right now. And while it's sad, let's be honest, it's sad that many kids find themselves in homes that can't be sustained. Right. It's good that we as a state and you as a region are embracing that idea of kinship. The other thing that I really want to highlight is that a group of philanthropic leaders in Davis County have joined with KYA and other foundations throughout the Commonwealth to launch an initiative around adverse childhood experiences. Things like not just child abuse, but domestic abuse, parental incarceration, poverty, inadequate food supply, poor quality housing, a rash of issues that put kids in vulnerable positions. And those leaders in Davies County, as well as those leaders throughout the state, are trying to get ahead of the curve. So what you can anticipate, that campaign is called Bloom Kentucky. And what they're trying to do is put before the General Assembly a discrete policy agenda that can begin to address adverse childhood experiences in Kentucky. Kentucky, unfortunately, ranks third in the nation in terms of the percentage of children who experience 8 or more of those adverse childhood experiences. And we know that those ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, they impact everything from academic achievement as a kid to literally your lifespan as an adult. So I really want to hold up those philanthropic leaders from places like Public Life, Hager Education Foundation, and the Young Foundation for going toward prevention, trying to bend the curve to make a difference. That is a significant initiative, and I think it'll make a big difference in your region's numbers when it comes to foster kids in very short order.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. We have a lot of work to do, clearly, with this report, from looking at the results from this report. And unfortunately, Terry, we have run out of time, and I apologize. There's so much in this report. I encourage everyone to go to our website, tristatehomepage.com, and check it out. As you said, a lot of work being done, but a lot of work still needs to do. Terry Brooks, the Executive Director of the Kentucky Youth Advocates, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for doing this good work.
Thank you for focusing on kids.